as of last year, we had a staff strength of about 6,500. We lose staff. Thank you. We lose staff through death, through resignation, through, thank you. Thank you. Through death, through resignation, and so on. But we don't have the opportunity to replace these. So you would lose about 300 staff members, and then you get financial clearance for 100. What do we do in the meantime? As managers, mindful of quality, sometimes we are obliged to employ without clearance, and what it means is that you have to find the money to pay these people. So it's essentially on IGF. Can we go back to the previous slide? Let's go back to the previous slide. Right. So essentially what we get as government subvention, that's right, thank you, is for salaries, even that not all of them. There's little or no support for infrastructure. The other problem with government subvention is that there are delays in disbursement. For all of the big universities, UG, KNUST, UCC, UEW, we have to find money to pay our staff, and then we are reimbursed, right? Now, for our staff members, 24th, they start looking at the calendar. In fact, from 22nd, they start looking at the calendar. By 25th, if we are not paid, then you start getting, you know, agitations. Dr. Jerry and co, they'll start sending emails, all of that. And so we ensure that we pay on time, and then we get reimbursed. But often we are in arrears of like 3-4 months. And that's a huge burden for the university. Sometimes you have to borrow to pay, and it comes at a cost. Currently, there is limited support for infrastructure expansion, equipment, IT support. There's very little of that. Now, I consider there are competing national priorities, and that impacts allocation to higher education. The issues to be attended to, other infrastructure issues, roads, and so on. Even within the education space, there is a pre-tertiary, you know, the basic, and the senior over the past few years has taken a lot of the national expense. Can we move on to the next two slides? There I just showed, you know, what the government subvention covers, and if you are seeing the slides, if you're seeing the slides, you see that the bulk of it goes into emoluments, that's the salaries. There's a book and research subvention, that's in the light blue, and the Get Fund receipts, which should largely go into infrastructure. You can see that you can hardly see that it's in purple. It's just at the top there, you can hardly see that at all. Now, the next slide. Our second largest portion of income is research income. Now, universities rely on foreign grants for research. When you look at that, okay, so now the minister can see. When you look at the figure there, 2022 at the University of Ghana, 98.85% of our research income came from grants. 2023, that's 94.85. You would notice that in 2023, there was an increase in the support from private sector. We did a little bit better, and that's 4.51%. Essentially, foreign grants may come with their conditions, may not align with the local needs or research focus of Ghanaian universities. talking about equitable collaborations. We try to provide good concept creation, the proposals, so that these are more suited to our needs. And we have improved in that regard, but nonetheless, as the saying goes, he who pays calls the tune. So there is a limitation in that regard. There's also the issue of declining external aid. I'm sure we are all aware of what is happening to USAID, WHO, and at the University of Ghana, for instance, we are directly affected. You know, we've received instructions to halt certain projects with immediate effect. And at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, for example, we have to, in the next few weeks, lay some people off because they were project staff and they were essentially being paid from projects, and we have to lay these off. So there is a lot of unpredictability about external funding. There's a limited control over grant use, which may hinder long-term planning. Long-term planning and sustainability of research initiatives. Okay, I hope this works finally. Now, fees and charges. Next slide. Fees charged do not reflect the actual cost of providing quality education. And 2,000, asking students to pay 2,000 or even 3,000 for the whole year. Yes, the salaries are taken care of, but there's a lot more that goes into providing quality higher education. And this is nowhere near it. Fees charged by traditional halls, for example, is insufficient to maintain and upgrade facilities. Reasonable fees are not charged due to limitations imposed by parliamentary control. Internally generated funds, I gave the data from the University of Ghana, that's about 8%. There's limited entrepreneurial activity. We get money to support the running of the university. As a result, in inadequate infrastructure and resources to support income-generating activities. Sometimes infrastructure to actually do this very successfully. And then we have weak alumni networks and low donor contributions, which also limits potential funding sources. Now, this was the next slide. We can skip that. That just shows the source of internally generated fund, but we can skip that and go to the private sector support. So let's move on. Next two slides. Yes, the next slide. As I've shown, there's limited financial and other incentives. They discourage private sector investment in higher education. There is no free lunch, as you see. You know, when people are contributing towards something, they want to see benefits. Recently, I was engaging with one of the companies, and they said, well, we were trying, we're doing, things for the University of Ghana, but we are not getting as much business from you as we expect in resources. It also supports research and innovation, and it enhances faculty development and attracts skilled employees because they know that they will be properly remunerated. It also reduces dependency on one particular source of income and fosters long-term planning and institutional growth. So what are some of the strategies that we can think about for innovative and sustainable funding of higher education? Let's move on to the next slides. So one, funding, we need to look at income, diversify the income streams. So for example, more public-private partnerships and collaboration with industries to support research and infrastructure and drive locally driven solutions. At UG, we can give the example of our collaboration with Toyota Ghana with regard to our School of Engineering Sciences. We've also had some consistent collaboration with Nestle Ghana Limited. And so the examples of these, but definitely there is a lot more that we can do in that regard. We also need to strengthen alumni networks to mobilize support for endowments and scholarships. We are all aware that universities in the United States, for example, depend a lot. They have big endowments. Well, some of them are very huge endowments, most of which are coming from their alumni. And for me, for us to get there, we need to ensure that while the alumni are students, they get a good experience. When they get a good experience, can we work out a formula which is, automatic? And in which case, then it is devoid of the politics, and we would say, oh, it's an election year, so we can't increase fees. Meanwhile, things are not stagnant. And I would like to also submit that to the residential facility user fees, it should not be regulated by the Fees and Charges Act. Since utilities, etc., are paid by the universities, we have a situation where when we work out what students are paying for residential facility user fees, it's like 3 cedis a day. Meanwhile, your electricity bill and janitorial services alone is like 6 cedis. Not to talk about, minor maintenance, a door handle broken, a table broken, and so on. And then to think about major maintenance, considering that some of these buildings are also quite old. We need the universities to promote research, commercialization, and innovation to generate additional income. So it is not sufficient that we do the research. We need to move into research commercialization. There are some too who can genuinely not pay, Can we use our means testings? And there are systems in various universities. We have the Student Financial Aid Office, which has worked over the years to support needy students. So let's have more of these targeted approach. And I would like to also submit that Scholarship Secretariat and GET Fund should minimize funding for students to go overseas. Universities in Ghana are seeing some seed money, and then we can engage major global funders to request for matching funds. And I would also like to suggest that in the operationalization of the National Research Fund, let's find the technocrats and use them. In our universities, we have people, who have the expertise in this regard and who have good relationships with major funders out there. So there's a need for us to leverage on these and get funds for our National Research Fund. Then we need to implement cost-cutting measures such as retrofitting buildings to drive energy costs. Next slide, please. To drive energy costs down and promote sustainability. We all know that the energy bills, the electricity bills in our institutions are high. And if we went solar, we were going to considerably reduce that. But of course, the initial cost of doing that is not cheap. And so that's where we need, government to have a program. We can jointly seek for grants to do these. And this applies for all our institutions at all levels. Because the burden, for me as a university manager, the burden, I pay, an average of 5 million per month for electricity alone. And we need to invest in digital infrastructure and innovation to meet diverse needs of students. We can't continue to have a brick and mortar solution for all the challenges that we have. We are in the 21st century, we are in the digital age, and we need to maximize efforts in that regards. So in addition to what I've said, some key recommendation, further key recommendation, next slide. I propose that we review and improve the Student Loan Trust Fund. When you go to countries like the UK, they support their tertiary students, and we, with our digitization, the Ghana card and so on, we get these graduates who have benefited from this to start to pay back when they are earning at a certain threshold. And by the way, for those who also benefit from our scholarships, let's have a program in place that allow them, once they start to work and earn at a certain threshold, to also give back. You know, a certain, it could be, you know, something minimal, a small percentage of their salary. Let's say do that for the next 10 or 15 years. And I'm sure by the time that they've done it for that long, it will become a habit, and they would wish to continue to give back so that others can benefit from that. Because when we take from the pot and we don't fill the pot dries up for future generations. We need to provide incentives for private businesses that invest in higher education, in education generally anyway. Everyone is looking for incentives. There's tax incentives. What other incentives can we give to businesses so that they will be encouraged to invest in education, because the government alone cannot do it. And we also need to support World Track approach to setting fees. In fact, this is already in place, but I believe that we can do better in this regard. We have, you know, fee-paying students. Can we have a bit more of those? So we have kind of cross-subsidy. So they are paying a little bit more, and it supports those who have to pay or can only afford to pay the minimal fees. We need to expand online programs to accommodate more students, particularly, you know, at the postgraduate level, you know, the professionals who want to improve themselves. And this is where we need the cooperation of the regulator. So, Mr. Regulator, when we have our programs and we want to have online versions of that, please do not overstretch us. Yes, you need to look at the IT infrastructure, but that's a program that we already run, and we want to make available to others. And I'm sure that when we have a lot more of these programs, people from all places, even outside of the country, can participate in our very quality graduate programs. We also need to expand university-owned enterprises. I know some universities have some enterprises, but it's an area in which we can work with others who have more expertise in that area, so that those of us in the main line, we keep to the main line, the academic and other things, and there are others who are responsible for these enterprises and businesses. And we need to categorize institutions and provide commensurate support. If you take universities in Ghana, we have diverse universities of different strengths, and it is not helpful when we put everybody in one box. They are very young institutions, young universities that need support, that need some seed funding, even for infrastructure. There are some universities you go to and you're wondering, is this a secondary school or is this a university? We need to categorize the universities and give adequate development. Think about all the countries that have developed, they have invested in higher education. So making sustainable funding available for that is a pressing necessity. And it is essential that we implement effective financial strategies to ensure that these institutions of higher learning can deliver high quality education and engage in impactful research which drives development. And so when we put sustainable funding solutions in place, these institutions will not only remain financially viable, but will also continue to shape the future by empowering students and advancing knowledge. If we have postponed this for too long, well, I would say that It is time for us to take action and invest in the future of education, which is the future of this country. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Can we give it once again for Professor? So we're going to invite... Okay. I'm getting guidance from Professor before my certificate is withdrawn. We're going to invite a maximum of 5 questions. But before that, permit me to acknowledge the presence of some dignitaries. Honorable Minister for Education is here. Honorable members of Parliament, can you just wave? We are glad to have you. Chief Director, Minister of Education. Heads of agencies of the ministry. All heads of agencies. Directors from Ministry of Education, please just wave us. Thank you so much. And I also saw former ministers. Honorable Setekpe was here. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we invite Honorable Minister for Education for a quick comment.
Thank you very much, Professor, and thank you very much, participants. There are some key issues I need to respond to at the policy level, so that during question time, you may not want to go back into those issues. So with your indulgence, I would proceed to deal with them. 1, it is not the intention of President Mahama or the NDC to interfere with your university governance. So have absolute faith that there will be unfettered academic freedom and its respect. We would not interfere with your governance. What the law requires us to do, we will consult with GTEC, except that we will help you build strong institutions. Professor Nanaba, let me thank you. Even though you are hitting the politicians, you hit your own too. When you said universities can be like secondary schools, I said, okay, this one is not a politician saying it. It's a Professor Vice Chancellor saying it. Now, 2, within the next fortnight, 2 weeks, President Mahama will appoint the governing councils of the university within the next 2 weeks. Yes, no. It probably even may be in the next 7 days, but I'm giving him room. I've just asked GTEC to submit the institutional reps to me. Then we'll add the president's wish and then get it out. Then 3, the National Research Fund will be operationalized this year fully and adequately funded. The administrator of the GET Fund is here, Paul. I've asked him to make seed money available for the takeoff of the National Research Fund. And I've asked him to get the admin structure in place, working with GTEC. The only other thing I need to clear with him is, we intend that this year, he probably will support each university to support a PhD program. But to begin with, he will do 5, 5, 5, 5. Then another layer. So Paul, you are accordingly instructed. Chairman of Planning Committee. So this was a suggestion, Prof, you made to us. So in order that he will help you build strong faculties, this year GET Fund will make allocation to the investors to support capacity building and to support you get faculty strengthening with PhD scholarships funded by GET Fund. So we won't go international, we'll go local, and then he will fund at least 5, 5, 5, 5 for the traditional universities, and then we roll it down. To the other universities, if we are not able to do PhD, we may start you at MPhil or another level and then build the capacity of faculties for you. So I thought I should respond to that. Then in President Mahama's his State of the Nation and in the budget, we'll try and offer incentives to the private sector that will support higher education. So we adopt it as a policy position. We expect that any private sector which will support higher education can enjoy some incentives from government. And finally, Professor Nanaba, we want a resolution to it. That disconnect between higher education, industry, and commerce. That's why the private sector doesn't have too much faith in you. What is the quality of the graduate from Ghana's higher education institution? We need to confront it, and confront it now. How do we improve the quality of the university graduate? If the private sector is expressing ambivalence, there's something wrong somewhere. And then long term, where government is able to borrow under the current circumstances, we cannot because we are under an IMF. But where government is able to borrow, we will invest in the innovation and IT hubs for the university into the future. I thought I should make this comment before we hear others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Yes.
I thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I mean, with his submission, I'm not sure that there are any more questions and comments, but I would like to say that we are very grateful, and you are a listening minister. You know, we have put issues across not just in this forum, but elsewhere, and you've certainly taken up a good number of these. And we will work with the ministry to ensure that these are fully realized. Just to speak briefly to the quality of the graduates and maybe their fitness for purpose. That is something that the universities, they have taken note of, and we continue to put in measures to ensure that the quality of the graduate is improved and they are fit for purpose. But that's something that we cannot do alone. We need to do together with industry. And so we have some universities like mine, you know, as an internship policy, where we're working with industry to ensure that before a student graduates, at least they have the opportunity to go out there and practice what is being taught in the classroom. And that requires that industry, companies, institutions, they are also open to receiving these students. It's a two-way street. Another thing that we do is also to have practitioners in residence at our various departments and schools. So I'm happy to say that the Honorable Tekpe teaches at our business school. Yeah. So I'm his vice chancellor. Yeah, and we have, you know, people coming in, you know, either to give a guest lecture or two, or for a period, we have them as practitioners in residence, or they are in residence for a period, let's say a month, you know, 2 months, 6 weeks, and so on, and then engage the students so that we bridge the gap between the theory and the practice. So these are efforts in place, and with your encouragement, we will continue to intensify such efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Please, Professor, can you have a seat so that we take all the questions? Okay, thank you. Please, I'm going to vary it a bit. I have to listen to Honorable Minister, Honorable MP, take the first bite at the questions, then I'll continue from that end. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, my Chancellor. You know, I'm one of. Thank you for the presentation. I'm saddened. You quoted as what you pay for electricity bills monthly, about 5 million. It's a lot of money. If you look at the renewable energy sources, it's supposed to be the sustainable energy source. So what strategies are you putting in place to ensure that you move towards renewable energy sources? I'm sure it will be helpful if we move towards that direction and we can bring down the money that you are paying for electricity bill at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Member of Parliament. So we're now going to move here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Prof, for a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Minister. Your comment made my day. I know that this discussion is within the context of tertiary education, but I'm looking at TVET and the involvement of industry in TVET. When Honorable Minister mentioned what they're going to do to sort of assist industry in tertiary education, my question is not directly to you. I want to humbly ask Honorable Minister, could you stretch your arm and look at the private sector and industry and their engagement and involvement in TVET? Because very often when we're talking about funding and TVET funding, we put everything together and we don't pay close attention to TVET funding in Ghana. And I think one key area that we think that we can get support in training and skill development in Ghana is the involvement, strong involvement, I should say, in industry. May I humbly ask if you could stretch and look in that direction for us. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Two key things. I'll ask one question anyway. You talked about the dwindling nature of our traditional sources of funding, and you cited the current issue of USAID and few others. Now, what are we doing? What can we do as higher educational practitioners and professionals to explore more innovative, particularly domestic sources of funding for higher education, so that if the tables are turning, we can rely on domestic sources of funding, which in my opinion are more reliable and sustainable. The second point, you talked about alumni contribution. And if you look at Ghanaian higher education, alumni contribution is pretty small. Other places, alumni contributions are next to fees and tuition. In Ghana, it's very low. I believe that alumni relations start from day one, the day that students are reporting to the university. If you go to our campuses on reporting day, sometimes there is chaos. Students have no places to sleep. Cars have no places to park. Parents are miserable because they have difficulty leaving their kids and their wards when they're not sure where they are going to sleep. My question is, how do we make sure, as higher education in Ghana, to have higher education and student affairs professionals to man certain areas of our universities? For instance, the Dean of Students Office. The Dean of Students Office, in my opinion, should have people, staff, who are specialized, who have specializations in student affairs. The Dean of Students, in my opinion, should have specialization in student affairs. So we understand exactly what we are doing, because alumni relations is dependent on student experience on campus. If students are not enjoying their lives on campus, I can assure you that alumni relations will be poor and alumni contributions will not get it. So my second question, linked to the first one, is what is the plan to ensure that we have professionals manning these places? Thank you very much.
All right, so Prof, my first question has to do with the proposal you made regarding annual increase in fees. Every year you increase fees. In a country where we all know salary levels are generally low and they don't necessarily increase as commensurate to this. How do we implement this in a country like this? Secondly, you propose that the fees and charges are not be stopping the universities from, or should be stopped from usage kind of in the university, so that the universities could charge fees. Maybe you need to clarify that, or if not, how is that possible if one day we get a vice chancellor who is so unreasonable, and because there's no act is interested in increasing fees, how do we act in such a situation? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Prof, for the presentation. I'm a rep from UTAG. Honorable Minister, we are grateful for the information you've given with regards to the National Research Fund. It's something we've been looking at. Mine is on the issue. We're also happy to hear from you and the President and also the Vice President that academic freedom is very key and there wouldn't be any form of political interferences. We are grateful for that. We want to find out, we want to be sure, Honorable Minister, there may be instances where a member, someone perceived to be pro a particular party, may have an idea that my party is in power. There are instances where some of the behaviors are more or less against certain individuals because that individual's party is in power. What should we do? I'm speaking from the perspective of an academic union leader. I happen to be the president of UTAG from UW. So if there are tendencies like this, what should we do? Thank you.
Thank you. We want Prof to respond to this set, then with the last set.
Thank you very much. Some of the questions and comments were stray bullets for the minister, the honorable minister. So I will skip that. The first point had to do with renewable energy. What are you doing? Honorable MP, like I mentioned, it's not as if we don't know what to do. We know the solutions to these. What we need is the support of funding to do what is needed to do. So that's my appeal through the minister, the various agencies. We will discuss and see how we can source funding for the initial investment for us to go, solar as much as possible. And then also what we're trying to do now is that for new buildings that are coming up, the policy is that we ensure that these buildings are sustainable and then we work out the cost of going that way into the construction cost. But there's a lot more older buildings which we need support to work at. Dwindling of traditional sources of fund. What do we need to do to build confidence in local funding? I touched on some of these things. First of all, as universities, we need to build relationships and build bridges. It's not enough to run the universities from sitting in our offices. We get out there and get industry to know, how they can benefit from us and how we can benefit from them. Only last week, 2 weeks ago, we were engaging some organizations as to how we can work together to build cases, even case studies for our teaching and learning at the University of Ghana Business School, for instance. So we need to do that, and then as we are doing now, also engage the government so that there are incentives for the domestic companies, industries, etc., who put their monies into funding higher education and education generally. Alumni contributions, student experience, I'm 100% for that. At the University of Ghana, for our new strategic plan, our first strategic priority is a transformative student experience. And we are working at various fronts to ensure that the students have a good experience, because we don't want students walking away from the university, walking away from departments and saying, never again, I don't want to have anything to do with this institution. So that is you talked about the Dean of Student Affairs and the role that they have to play. Yes, that's true, but it's a collective effort. You have a campus of 70,000 students. The Office of the Dean of Students cannot handle all of these. At various levels, at the hall levels, for example, we have tutors, we have floor tutors. at the departments, we have academic advisors and so on. So all of these have to work together. It requires constant orientation, reorientation, and supervision to make sure that they are doing what they have to do and putting the student first. Without the students, we are going to crumble on our feet and there will be no university. Annual increases. You know, the argument that you make can also be made for ensuring that we have these annual increases. Because, as we say, we all go to the same markets. I think that if we go to a different market because you can afford to maybe buy from the person who is not charging VAT, but I, as an institutional head, I cannot do that. So, yes, when things go up, managers for institutions also feel the pinch because our operational costs also go up. So what we are talking about are reasonable increases. I'm not even saying realistic, I'm saying reasonable, regular increases. And when we do that on the regular basis, then the increase is not so much. If you're waiting for 3 years to do that, we tend to want to have so much to make up for the years that we didn't have the increase. So can we work out a formula that is reasonable on both parts? Because we need to keep the quality, and it takes money to keep the quality. I didn't say that the Fees and Charges Act should not be operational. I just mentioned that in reference to the residential facility user fees. Now, this was in place at the time when government was paying utilities and so on, but that is no longer the case. We need to have another conversation about that because the conditions have changed. Why do we continue to do the same things when we have a different set of conditions? So that the rest is...
Thank you so much. Honorable please, first, we want to take your response to the question. After we have exhausted, please, that you will be the last to address it. So I'm going for the last. No comments. Either a what, why, how kind of question, so that we move straight. We are seriously concerned with time. Please.
Okay,
please,
so
move on.
Mine is not really a question. I am Christopher. I work with UNICEF. I want to find out to what extent maybe how other universities in different countries demonstrating the delivery of private public partnerships and supporting the university systems. I'm saying this because in 2024, myself and Director for School GNS and Director St. Lawrence were in Helsinki. We visited one university, also university in Finland. The university had over 70 to 100 companies on campus. And so they were really working together in terms of knowledge, in terms of partnership for funding and other stuff. So to what extent are some of these models being learned and also adapted within our system in Ghana? So yeah.
Thank you so much. Specific.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, VC, for the presentation. Very fantastic. But there's a gap. You talked about tertiary education. I haven't heard anything about the colleges of education. And the minister precisely talked about funding PhDs to universities. What is in the pot for the last baby of the tertiary institution, college of education?
Thank you so much.
One other comment for the Vice Chancellor. I want to ask a question about the fee paying. Is it access for people to attend, or is IGF? A third one,
please,
universities across,
I'm
seeking permission.
Supposed to take just
I want to find out about foreign students in our universities, because globally, that's one of the ways by which you can charge fees the way you want in foreign dollars. UG,
okay.
What are you doing for sustainable funding?
Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you very much, Moderator, and I'm happy that also the Minister is here. To bridge the knowledge gap or skills gap, I just want to make a little contribution that the National Research Fund should consider a directorate called the Research Directorate that will guide or that will give teams for yearly research that will add to national direction and propel the country in the way the country wants to go. The question is, what is your take, Vice Chancellor, on having a national research laboratory that will train postgraduate students every year specifically to the field of their study? As a student leader president of UCC, I see that most students want to undertake some research project, but lack of laboratory to test their such samples is very, very difficult. So universities, since they have no capacity in terms of finance to build such lab to help students to do those research, if there is a national research laboratory, it will project TVET, project STEAM, project all that. What is your take on that kind of facility?
The question is asked.
I'm Dr. Mark Maxter, President for Black Empowerment. And I like to, yes, Black Empowerment. I'd like to start by saying, quoting a JHS boy who said that government is a group of people, small group of people sitting in Accra, terrorizing the rest, pretending to represent us all. That is the only thing that is wrong with this country. It's the first thing. There's only one other thing. Education, and tertiary education for that matter, is just to train people, to teach people, so that by the time they come out, they become useful to themselves and the community. That is the scale, to prove how they are going to exploit the environment to benefit themselves and the community. The next thing is talk about the pride they get for leadership. Yeah, I'm coming to it. Otherwise, you won't understand my point. Yeah, let me rush to the point. Let me cut the chase. See, tertiary education is already running, and people are working with industries to learn and come out into industry and produce for the economy. The problem is that we have sequestered those in our institutions, universities, getting government subvention from those who are actually training.
So, can we ask the question?
The question is, what are we doing to bring the so-called informal sector, who are already training people for our economy, into the formal sector? Because there are already people training in tertiary. They go to school, immediately they finish that particular school, they actually come into the work field, which as a sinking ship is the one we need most in tertiary education.
Much. Thank you. Professor has taken note of. Please, let's keep our questions quick and straight to the point.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much, moderator. I think that was a splendid presentation from the Vice Chancellor. But my question goes directly to the Honorable Minister. Even though my Professor Atitun has taken a win out of my seal, I think you talk about get fund support for lecturers university, traditional university, 5 each. But you inadvertently left out the colleges of education. At least you can promise us also 3 each from all the colleges. We already have a lot of challenges, and if you deny us this, then you'll be increasing the challenges that we have in the colleges of education. Please, respectfully, based on promise to us also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, please, I'll come to you.
Sure. All right. So,
yeah, proceed.
My name is Dr. Frank Agbo. I'm a school owner actually, but basic school, crèche to junior high. But I want to ask a question in regards to the distance programs. Now, what are we doing for the private universities that are located in various regions, where public universities are competing with them with their distance programs? For instance, we have a university here that runs this education programs, EP University in Ho. Then UCC is also running the distance programs here, competing with the private universities. So what are we doing to ensure that the private universities also, UCC, WIDIPA, both of them?
Thank you so much. Please, allow. Please, allow.
What do we do? What do we do?
Please.
Hello. So the question is, what do we do to ensure that the public universities are not competing with the private universities in some of those regions, so the regions also develop?
Thank you. Can you pass it? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes,
so,
please proceed.
I would like to find out from Prof what measures the universities themselves are also putting in place to reduce the cost of running the institutions take into consideration, we have School of Engineering. In most of the schools, you have those mining and other. We talk about green energy. There are some individuals of African countries that are taking advantage of green energy, using radio waves to generate electricity that can power a whole community. So how do you cut down costs? Can you challenge your engineering colleges to look at that? And then also the last one.
Thank you. I'm not going to allow the last one. Respect to honor to allow the last one.
Thank you, Prof. I'm Honorable Kuma Kintaponov, a member of the Education Select Committee. My question is, Minister, are we going to consider merging all the various scholarship institutions into one body? Various scholarship institutions into one body so that we can monitor the number of people accessing them.
Thank you so much.
One is,
no more.
No more.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Let me obey you.
Kindly pass two. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jeremy Proctor. I'm from the British High Commission. The stats that you shared around financing to research domestically were really stark. And for the government to unlock economic growth through science, technology and innovation, it's vital to have scientifically driven, independent, domestically funded research finance. So that's why I'm so pleased to hear the commitment and congratulate the Minister on the commitment for the National Research Fund to be operationalised this year. Independent and scientifically driven financing is really difficult to do, and so, Prof, I would welcome any advice you have on those thinking about operationalising the NRF, and within that, you mentioned technocrats, and how do you see that actually working in practice, getting the right technocrats working on it, given that most of the capacity so far has been built within
All right. My name is Obinfo Nanakwesi Jitia. I'm representing private schools. I want to find out the role in this whole arrangement, the private universities, so therefore they can continuously support the public universities to absorb
there was the mention of private-public partnership. Of course, some of these are comments and thoughts for us to think about. It's not all the answers. There was a private-public partnerships, ways in which we can do this to get companies, institutions to commission research. So if there are challenges now or even that they anticipate, they get the universities to do research for them in that regard. I mentioned the point about co-training too, where we have guest lecturers, where we have practitioners in residence, where we get students also to intern. And another way in which we can collaborate has to do with research commercialization. Yeah, we do the research, and if we have to commercialize the research, that's at another level, and we need the support of industry in that regard. There was a question about foreign students, international students. Yes, international students population, of course, got affected with COVID and other factors, really. When you look at the University of Ghana, for example, there are two kinds of international students. We have the short-term students who come for a semester or maximum of an academic year, and they go back to their institutions. And there are those that come and they enroll fully for programs at the university, whether at the undergraduate level or the graduate level. At the graduate level, we have some programs which are funded through certain research grants, which are open to international students, particularly students from the African continent. And we have these students coming. At the undergraduate level, you will notice that for the full-term students, I think we still do, but there was a point where we had a number of students coming in from Nigeria. For various reasons, the instability of their tertiary education at that time, lecturers being constantly on strike and so on and so forth. But some of these things have changed over time. You know, lecturers, I think now they are doing, well with their salary. There is more stability. There were also certain government policies that did not support the transfers of monies and all of that. And then also there are some private universities that have come up strongly that are doing well. And so parents are rather sending their children there rather than transferring them here. So we need to be aware of all of these things